This is an interview on the 6th of March 2005 with Alexander Joseph Lochhead, VX118202, V65755, Lance Corporal, 39th Battalion, A Company, 9 Platoon. Alex, how did you come to join the Army?
I originally joined the Army as a cadet with 5 Battalion, as a militia cadet, and then at the age of 16, and then at the age of 18, we were automatically transferred to the militia as 5 Battalion, and friends of mine, two friends of mine from school helped me join because they were members too. And,
so while you were with the 5th Battalion, did word come through for the forming of the 39th?
yes, we just completed 3 months compulsory camp at Mount Martha, and just after that word came through that there was a unit to be formed from Victoria to garrison Port Moresby. Full stop. No one quite knew where Port Moresby was, or really anything about it, but we decided that it's better than doing nothing, we'll go up there. Because 5 Battalion had been really wiped out because most of 5 Battalion had gone to 2nd, 5th Battalion, and there wasn't much left of it, so we decided we'd go to 39th Battalion.
So quite a few members of the 5th Battalion went to the 39th?
Yep. Yes, from A Company, I'd say probably 40 people.
And did you first go to Caulfield Racecourse and form up there?
Yes, well, we had to go to Caulfield Racecourse to get our pass to go to Darley. And we were processed at Caulfield Racecourse. And overnight, the next morning, into train at Caulfield, into Spencer Street to the Duckers Marsh Station. And I think we were met by a truck then, I'm not too sure that. Yeah.
And what was at Darley at the time? Just a basic
Darley was a training camp for, I'm not too sure really, but there were huts, that's about it.
What sort of training did you do at Darley?
Very little actually. That did a usual bull ring sort of training, attacked hills and defended hills, dug a few holes. That's about it. Very little training there.
And you were still a private at that stage?
Yep.
Who were some of your mates at Darley that you remember?
I remember Jack Ackhurst was with the platoon sergeant. Vern Scattergood was another one there. And I don't think that we didn't sort of team up with too many at that time because people were going on leave and coming back from leave, and it was a bit disorientated, you know, people here and people there. There were 2 or 3 that we met that I knew possibly.
And at some stage you would have got word that you were going to embark on the way to Sydney and then up to Port Moresby. How did you feel about finally getting underway?
We were anxious to get away. We had Christmas dinner there, and that we were told prior to that we were boarding the train the next day, and we were happy to get rid of Darley. It wasn't not a very nice place, really.
About that time there was a big street parade that the battalion marched in Melbourne. Can you remember that?
No, that was before we joined it. We were late getting into the process because.
Do you remember much about the trip up to Sydney?
Not really, no. I was on the train, and it was really the first time most of us had been on a train for any distance at all, and it was all very interesting, put it that way. And,
The Aquitania must have looked a large ship, a great sight.
Yes, we were surprised at the size of it because we hadn't seen anything quite as big, and also I think the Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth were in harbour at the same time, and they looked quite big too. But
Were you lucky enough to get a cabin, or where did you sleep?
initially we were all given a boarding pass in a cabin, and it took us, I think, half the day to find the thing. It was right down in the bowels of the ship, and that was the last time we saw it because the group of us were told to report up on the top deck. We were going to be submarine watchers, whatever that meant. No one told us what at all, but it was much better up on top than down in the bowels of the ship, I can tell you that.
What was the feeling like between the members of the battalion at some stage? Was it a friendly, a good feeling?
Oh yes, it was very normal feeling. Everyone was quite happy to be on the move and away.
But there was a good mateship and people were pretty friendly?
Oh, they were friendly, yes. I suppose most ships sort of had been mates together, and everyone was quite friendly.
On the trip up to New Guinea, did you do much? I suppose there would have been some shooting practice, some rifle drills, or
No, there was a bit of drill apparently for some of them, but all that we were firmly ensconced up on the top deck and away from it all. So we
looking for submarines.
Looking for submarines. They tell me they saw one because the destroyers dropped a few depth charges, but I think that was a bit of practice for them too, something or other.
So how did you feel when you finally approached Port Moresby and you saw the hills and everything?
Well, it's very interesting because we couldn't dock at the port, at the pier, and we had to be transported by some by ship's boat, another by the destroyer onto the pier. Then we formed up there and looked around, and it was getting late at that time, and a few of the natives were looking at us and wondering who the hell we were, and a few of the locals sort of wondered who we were too. And next thing, picked up our gear, and you're heading out for the 7 Mile Drain, whatever that was. We didn't know anything. No one knew at all. Just head round that way.
And you were there to replace another battalion who had been there quite some time.
No, I think the 49th, not the Queensland Battalion, they'd been there for a while, but I think we were going to relieve them, but I don't think we were initially because, frankly, I only saw one company of them at all. I think they didn't have too many 49th up there at the time.
So you marched off to the 7 Mile Drome.
Yep, up the road. And, no one knew what it was, and we got up there and it was night time. The moon was out, and we were on the side of a hill, and there looked to be a creek down below. And apart from the fact there were a lot of mosquitoes, and that was it. We lay down on the ground that night.
Unfortunately, most of the supplies were at the bottom of the ship, so it must have taken a while to get those out.
I think it was 3 weeks, something like a fortnight or 3 weeks before we unloaded it. Yeah, but it was very good. It started the campaign off in the right direction because everything was topsy-turvy.
So one of the main duties of the battalion was unloading different ships and taking guard, keeping guard for the Air Force at the 7 Mile Drome?
No, we initially, the first priorities were discharging the ships, and then the second one was loading the McDewey and the other Burns Fault that used to come up there, loading stuff onto them. And then eventually the drone itself was really nothing at all. It was just a strip the natives were working on to try and clear it. It was really just a dirt strip at that time. So we really weren't guarding that drone at all. We were just there. That was our eventually, I suppose, the eventual task off for us.
You mentioned the MacDooey. Do you remember when the MacDooey was bombed?
I remember it when it was bombed, but my company wasn't involved in it at all because we'd been there the day previous to it, and another company were unfortunate to be in it.
Do you remember much about the camp at the 7 Mile? You would have had to try and establish that camp, and
Well, we did. We had to dig our own holes, the trees. We had to get tents when they eventually arrived, put them up, and we had our own kitchen eventually. Everything was done not on a daily basis, but when things arrived, we had to do and put them up. Bit hard to sort of explain that at all, but it took about 3 weeks before we could safely say we were sitting in a tent with a bed.
with all the unloading of ships and all the other duties you had, was there much time for training?
Nil, zero. No one thought of training at all.
I would say they probably hadn't envisaged the Japanese landing and the 39th going into action. So it was mostly just road building duties or
We were a Labour Battalion at that stage, yes.
Can you remember much about the Japanese bombing raids when they started?
Yes. I think the first raid, we saw these planes go overhead, and I think it was Larry Downs actually looked up and said, "Yeah, dropping confetti." And someone said, "They're not confetti, you clown, they're bombs." And we could see that in the sky, the glint of the bombs falling out of the aircraft. And then it became every day virtually they were bombing the airstrip. Or if they didn't bomb the airstrip, they'd go for the harbour. But we suddenly woke up to the fact that the safest place when they bombed the harbour, if we were loading a boat, was sitting the boat alongside the wharf, because we were quite sure that they weren't going to bomb the wharf. That was the only thing there. If they were coming down, well, they wanted the wharf. But that was a daily occurrence, really. And then the fighters came in strafing when they saw anything on the drone itself. So it was interesting, quite, a couple of months there at the time.
You would have had some machine guns set up, I would
We eventually did, yeah.
So did you have a pop at some of the Zeros coming in?
Yeah, I think we stopped them coming in and strafing because we had that many machine guns around the drone. I think there were 40 of various machine guns and all around there at the drone. And when they came in, they got a hail of fire, and once that was established, they'd come in very often.
A couple of the Zeros got shot down. Can you remember that?
We didn't see them actually shot down. We could see a trail of smoke, and they just disappeared at the horizon. And we reckon that we'd hit them, and they wouldn't get home at all.
Can you remember when the 75 Squadron Kitty Hawks first arrived?
Yeah. Mm.
And the drama involved with that?
Yeah, we're up on what they call a listening post overlooking the airport at the time, and we'd, every day not the Kitty Hawks, but the Tomorrow Hawks were coming, and they just did exactly what the Japanese did, swooped in, circled around, and everyone thought they were Japanese, and opened up. Luckily didn't shoot anyone down, but they did a bit of damage. But there was no communication to us on the listening post when we should have been told, or down at the drone, for the people down there. No one bothered to tell us that they were coming, as normal, up in that part of the world.
Once the Kitty Hawks arrived, did that stem the bombing attacks after that?
To a great degree, yes. They still came over, but not as often.
And the airfield would have got quite busy then with transport planes and all
yes.
sorts of things.
Yeah, well, the Americans brought in a late engineer battalion to complete the airfield, and then they had their own planes coming in, the fighters and bombers, and it was quite a busy place.
What do you remember about the American engineer battalion being there? Were they well looked after?
Well, we weren't that close to them at all because they were camped on the airstrip, and we were sort of on the side of the hill away from it. You didn't actually go down and join them at all, but they were the workers, and we were doing something else like loading base and things like that.
At that stage, you would have been there a while. Did you receive regular mail from home and parcels? And
Initially, yes. I took about, I think, a fortnight to 3 weeks before the first lot of mail arrived. Yeah.
Must have been good to get mail from home and parcels.
Yes, it's my first letter was from my mother, saying that I'd been called up and had to report to Many Ponds training depot to be inaugurated into the army.
She would have had great joy in telling them that he was already in New Guinea.
I wrote back and said, you go down and tell I'm up here in New Guinea, and take the first letter I had, which was all cut to pieces. There was nothing in it anyhow. But she went down to the Many Ponds depot, and they didn't understand it at all. But, why? No one's told us, They had no idea who we were and what we were and what we were doing.
Eventually, the Japanese invaded the north coast, and word must have come down that the 39th had to do something. And can you remember that time when everyone was getting ready, probably getting prepared to march forward or to fly up to Kokoda?
You already heard that the Japanese were going to land, and a company was to go up to Gona to garrison the place because the Americans were going to build an airstrip in that part of the world. And then all of a sudden it became sort of one company, the whole battalion was going up there, and we did a few training exercises on company level and platoon level in, I think, about a week to a fortnight while we prepared to go out on the trail, on the track.
Was that just done around the 7 Mile, or?
No, between the 7 Mile and the 3 Mile, in the area around that part of the world.
So at least you got some training, which wasn't much, was it?
No, very little indeed.
Mm. And what weapons did you have at that stage? Just no Bren guns at that stage?
No, we had Lewis guns, First World War guns. We had the rifles, most of the First World War. The machine gun company had Vickers machine guns, which were the First World War variety. I don't think we had the border platoons had mortars. That was it. Then we, just before we went over, we were given Tommy guns, one per section, and we had to learn how to use a Tommy gun and strip it. We knew all about Lewis guns and we knew about rifles, but we didn't know anything about Tommy guns.
What were they like, the Tommy gun?
Very nice in fact, but you needed a lot of attention in that climate. With the rain, you had to be careful with the ammunition because the ammunition became moist and misfired, and too many workman parts clogged up with a bit of dirt.
Who was your, prior to leaving to go up to fight the Japanese, who was your platoon commander and platoon sergeant at that stage?
At that stage, Roy Neal was the platoon commander, and Jack Ackhurst was platoon sergeant. Unfortunately, he became sick, and Larry Downs was next in line, took over from him. and I took over from Harry Downs as a section commander.
So did you become a Lance Corporal at that
Lance
stage?
Corporal, unpaid section commander.
Unpaid section commander.
Yeah.
And it was a good platoon, 9 platoon?
Oh yes, yeah, a very good platoon. Well, a bit biased, of course. We thought it was one of the best.
And B Company left under Sam Templeton to walk across the track. How did you get to Kokoda eventually? Did you walk across or did you fly?
No, we walked. We were the, I think C Company was the first company after B Company, and we were the third company. We walked.
And what do you remember about that great walk?
Oh, it was interesting, and it was something new and something different from where we had been. Full of interest. Very hard at times, but it was hard. Luckily, the track was dry at that stage, and it was easy to walk on. Coming back, it was totally different with all the mud and slush and that sort of thing. But it was much easier. It was no one knew how far the next village was. No one knew where the next hill finished, and all the you go up the hill and think, that's the top, the false crests along the way. You know that.
Yes. Did you have, at that stage, going across initially, did you have native carriers helping you?
Yes, we were fortunate. We had native carriers carrying our packs. We carried our normal side weapons and our equipment, but they carried our packs.
I felt how heavy a Bren gun weighs. I couldn't imagine carrying something like that across with ammunition.
Well, we carried Lewis guns across, which were heavier than the Bren, because we haven't seen a Bren gun at this stage, and that was shared between the section. You each took turns in carrying it for 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, whatever the case may be. That was the heaviest item we had to carry.
And how was the feeling amongst 9 platoon? Still pretty good, morale good, and looking forward to
doing something. We didn't know what we were doing because the information we were getting of what was in front of us was zero.
You had very little intelligence at that stage?
No intelligence whatsoever. We knew that they'd landed in B Company up in front of us, but that was all we knew.
So you eventually got to Kokoda or Deniki first?
Yeah, we stopped at Deniki, and prior to that we'd been delivered Bren guns, and there was only one person in the company, or in the platoon, knew anything about them, and he was busy going around telling us what a Bren gun was, what it can do. Well, that was very limited. He'd been given half an hour, I think, on it himself, and we didn't know too much about them. We got rid of our Lewis guns, we had Bren guns.
The Bren gun was a wonderful weapon, wasn't it?
It was a weapon once you knew all about it. But unfortunately, no one told us about the gas cylinder that had to be opened and cleaned and opened and cleaned. And my gun clogged up because we didn't know where the gas cylinder was. We couldn't understand why it was only firing one round and stop after a while. But it didn't make much difference because we didn't have any ammunition then, so it didn't make any difference.
Alex, once you arrived at Deniki, you were involved in patrols out of Deniki down towards Kokoda?
To Kokoda, yeah.
And you probably were looking for Japanese, and did you see some Japanese on the airstrip?
We were looking to see how many there were, if we could get close enough. And I don't think we quite found out how many there were, but we did find out there were enough down there.
Then you were told to, or you were ordered to then go to Kokoda.
Yeah.
And was that by Major Cameron?
Yep, Major Cameron organised the attack on Kokoda. A company were going to take Kokoda, and one company to the right, other company to the left. And A company went down to occupy Kokoda.
And you were guided down by Sergeant Sanopa. And what was he like?
He was very good. He was a top-class sergeant, or PIB sergeant, police sergeant. He knew all the tracks of the area. And he guided us down. We went down the main track, then we walked down the creek alongside the plateau and turned left and climbed up onto the plateau. And luckily at that stage I think we saw 3 Japanese, so it all got up to attack Deneki and left these people behind to look after their stores. Thank God for that.
So you must have missed the main force going to attack Deneki.
They got up in the morning and we got down there about midday.
So you set up on the plateau?
Yes, we took positions on the plateau and we were supposed to dig in, but we had no tools at all, so we occupied positions that presumably B Company had dug. And
Because Owen had been killed at this stage?
Owen was dead, yeah. And we were down there as a company group. Major Symington was our CO, company commander.
And there would have been around about 100 of you there in a company?
Possibly at the 100 at the top figure.
And what was Major Symington like?
Very good. I don't know.
And you just waited there in your positions, and then did the Japanese attack next day?
Yeah, we just waited there. Next morning we went on a little patrol heading up towards Deneki to see if there was anyone there or what information we could find. And they must have followed us back because they started their attack then.
And that attack was around about midday, and it lasted for the rest of the day?
There were sporadic attacks. They'd fire a few rounds, shift position, fire a few more rounds, shift again.
Is this amongst the tall rubber?
In amongst the rubber, yes.
And you're on the edge. Were you on the edge of the rubber, or?
We're on the edge of the rubber, yes. Right on the edge of it.
And who were some of the other soldiers around you at the time? Can you remember?
Well, I can remember my platoon, my section, I'm sorry, it was Vic Smythe, my machine gunner, and Dryden, who was his number 2, and myself. There were only 3 of us in the section at the time. Roy Baxter of 8 section was next door to me, and that was all we could see. We knew that the rest of the company were spread across the plateau, but we couldn't see them or hear them at all, apart from when they fired.
And the attacks continued all through the day and into the night?
Yep. They were sporadic attacks, like feints and then a dash, and we learned a few lessons then because they're supposed to be good soldiers. When they came into the rubber, which was a lawn, they had headdress with their trees and sprouting, green sprouting out of their helmets, and they'd go behind a tree, a rubber tree, and next thing out come this little fern would come. We woke up very quickly to shoot at that. Had some results apparently too.
And the Japanese infiltrated your lines during the night also?
Yeah. Yes, they came and crept through the lines, and they killed one and wounded one of my section. I think they only came through my section post because I think we must have been doing the most damage somewhere or other.
And I would say at that time you would have felt that the odds were against you? Did you feel as though the tide was starting to turn? And
we thought things were getting really nasty because we were running out of ammunition. Our Bren was playing up, and no one came near us at all to tell us what was going on or anything at all. So we just stopped there and thought, well, you know, someone will eventually tell us what to do. That was it.
Had the rest of the company left and you were basically...
No, the rest of it, we could hear firing going on, but we knew that others were there, but no one came to see us at all.
And at what stage did you withdraw? Was that when Jim Cowie or...
No, at stage, during the afternoon, we could hear a bull-like voice roaring orders in Japanese. But we realised that this was it. They were going to do their final attack. And just on dusk, the final attack came through right across the plateau. And at that stage, my machine gunner was wounded, and his number 2 was wounded, only minor wounds. So I said, well, you disappear back, and as soon as you're out of the way, I'll disappear too. We were supposed to have been told to pull out, and I called to Roy Baxter, who was the next corporal, next section. You getting out? And he said, I'm getting out right now. So we pulled back, and the first person we met was Jim Cowie, who was collecting the unwounded, as many as he could, and making sure that there was no one left. And after a little while, he said, well, the attack died down because they must have been in amongst and found no one. It's time to go, and we just headed off across the bridge and walked across the bridge to the airfield and across the airfield into the scrub behind it.
What sort of man was Jim Cowie?
He was a very top-class soldier, cool, calm and collected. Thank goodness for that.
And you stayed the night just past the airfield, and then you bypassed Denicky and went to Narrow, is that right?
Yes, we bypassed Dinner because we could hear the shooting still going on. We knew that Denicky was occupied. So we decided we'd met up with Symington at this stage of the game, with his group, and the decision was made that we stop the night at this little native village and go on to Ishirama. They luckily gave us one yam between 3 of us to have a little feed because we hadn't eaten for 2 days, so we were a little bit hungry.
So you had no food really, you had little ammunition, you would have been pretty tired and lack of sleep.
You were tired. The main thing, we had no ammunition, which fired off our ammunition, and there was no food coming because the planes that were supposed to bring it all in didn't arrive.
So how did you feel about your baptism of fire at that stage? I suppose everything happened just so quick.
Yeah, it was strange. It was something that we were prepared for because we knew it had to happen, and we just accepted the fact that we had to fire back at the enemy. Full stop. It's a strange feeling. I don't know. Can't quite work it out at all.
Then you eventually arrived back at Ishirava.
Yeah.
Was it good to get back to... Was most of the battalion there then?
Yes, I think the rest of the battalion, the main body of the battalion was there, and there were stragglers coming in for the next week after that from people that had been cut off from not only our company but the other companies too.
But it was good to get back to...
It was good to get back to the battalion and know there were a few friendly faces.
And you would have had a hot meal and...
No. They gave us a tin of bully beef and a packet of biscuits each. I think it was a hot meal.
That's when Colonel Honour joined the battalion at that stage?
Yes, just around about that time, yes. He joined it.
Did you meet Colonel Honour or see him?
Not until... I didn't meet Colonel Honour until Gona, actually. Oh, so at Gona.
And at Ishirava, you would have known that you would have had to regroup pretty quickly, because you would have known the Japanese would be then following you, and probably would have eventually attacked.
We were sent out on patrols. We had a standing patrol half an hour forward of Ishirava, and it was taken. The teams took it in turns to man that, and one morning the platoon I was with at the time, the Japanese came and started to annoy us first thing in the morning. The idea was information, so as soon as they started to probe, we'd pull out, and then we knew that something was happening then. And they chased us back into Ishirava, and then it started mainly the attack on Ishirava.
Your platoon would have been depleted a little bit. Did you join other platoons, or you just stick to the same platoon at that stage?
A company was depleted. It was formed into 2 platoons, 2 small platoons. I think there were only about 10 in each platoon at that stage. Wouldn't be many more.
Did you still have the same platoon commander?
No, Ryan Allen had disappeared somewhere. He'd gone back, and I'm not too sure if Larry Downs was acting platoon commander or Sorensen was. I'm not too sure. We never saw them very much at all.
And what do you remember about the Ishirava battle, the early couple of days before the 2nd 14th arrived?
Mainly it was noise. So the Japanese had oodles of ammunition, and every afternoon they'd open up with their machine guns for half an hour or so and sweep the area. They had mountain guns which they'd fired at us, and little attacks would come in, probing attacks to see where we were. Noise and rain, that was the 2 elements there.
Can you remember where A Company was situated?
Yeah, we were back at the rear, on the side of the track, at the rear, heading towards, on the left-hand side, heading towards Port Moresby. That was our position, and we were fortunate that we didn't strike any heavy attacks.
Was it a flat area?
No.
Or was it just on a bit of a slope?
On the side of the slope.
Yeah, it goes up quite steep, doesn't it?
That's right.
You were at the bottom of the slope, or?
We were on the side of the track, on the slope down towards the Eura Creek, I think it is, at the bottom. And we were just below the main track on a bit of a ridge, on that, heading down towards on the left-hand side.
So did the Japanese push into your company position at some stage?
No, luckily they didn't come on that side. They mainly came on the hillside, attacked on the I suppose the right-hand side, and our company provided a couple of counter-attack forces to force them out, and but then things were getting dicey, but luckily the 2nd 14th arrived.
You can remember that vividly?
Very much so.
How did you feel?
Amazed that someone was coming up, because we hadn't been told that they were around, and we knew that we either had to stop or get out, one of the 2. Otherwise, if we didn't get out, we wouldn't be getting out.
You must have felt that the 39th was just by themselves for so long. Must have been a great feeling to see the 2nd 14th come through.
Yes, it was.
And they took a fair brunt of the fighting from then on.
They did. Company by company, they took over. Luckily. Amazing fellows. It's probably one of the best battalions in the Australian Army, the 2nd 14th.
Their soldiers were well trained, fairly confident?
Fully trained and very fully confident, yep.
So once 2nd 14th came in, did you then support the 2nd 14th at Ishirava?
We were there helping them, yes. They bolstered up our little company platoon positions for, I think, 24 hours anyhow before we went out.
And did you fall back, did you withdraw back along the track with the 2nd 14th?
No, actually we got out prior to the 2nd 14th, but strange enough, right at the end, there was a couple of us told off to stop anyone going down the main track, push them off away from the main track. And because we didn't know, we thought the Japanese would circle around and cut the track. And at that stage was when, what's his name, the second 14th got his VC, rounding up people. Kingsbury, to go and charge up this bare old market garden to cut them off. And
can you remember that? Or
one of the funny things I can remember is we're directing people and someone said, "Sergeant Lochhead," and I looked around and it can't be me, I'm a Lance Corporal. Apparently the 2nd 14th had a Sergeant Lochhead. He was killed up in Gona. I didn't meet him at all, but they were coming round, dragging people to go up and have this little counter-attack.
And that was the counter-attack that Kingsbury won his VC at?
Mm. Yeah.
So, after Ishirava, you pulled back along the track?
We pulled back that night and eventually we joined up on the main track with a bit of a roundabout route, joined up the main track and went back to Ura Creek.
Tell us about Ura Creek, because we were talking to Larry Downs and he has a story about when you were getting back across the log bridge.
Is that still there, that big log across the creek?
There is a log bridge across there. It's probably a different log, but it's probably the same. It's probably the same position.
There's a huge log there, and when we were going across, we settled sideways because the river's quite running quite a bank below, and there's big rocks there. And anyhow, the last action we did, we had to go across and rear guard while the 2nd 16th, I think, were falling back. And Bill Merritt, Major Merritt, we were in 2 companies at this stage, and Bill, myself, Larry must have been there, and about 3 or 4 others. We were a bit of a guard to ushering the 2nd 16th back, any more to come, and eventually someone said, "We're the last ones." Bill Merritt says, "Right, let's get back," and we headed off for the log, and just as we got to the log and got on the log, machine gun opened from the side. The Japanese must have infiltrated around the side. Lucky they were bad shots, they were chipping the log underneath us, and I was second last. Bill Merritt was behind me and saying, "Come here, run you bugger," and we ran across this log, which previously we'd settled across the thing. And that was the last sort of action that we took part in, the 39th. And then the next one was Ura Creek back to Minari and handed our automatic weapons to 2nd 27th, who came up at that stage, and we headed back to Port Moresby.
Before you headed back, you were just tell us something about Colonel Honor's speech, because you're in a photo. There's a photo of Colonel Honor giving the speech at Minari with Keith Lovett in the sort of just standing behind him, and you're pictured over
the tent. Larry Downs and myself were detailed not to stand with the parade, but to listen in, and as soon as he stopped speaking, we'd head off in front of them to organise where we were going in the next village down the line. And his speech was a very effective speech, sort of, "Thank you very much, you're a wonderful battalion, you did a marvellous thing," and I don't remember the speech at all, but that was the gist of it. Very well chosen words.
That would have been probably the first time most of the troops would have heard Colonel Honor speak, I would imagine.
Probably the first time I'd seen him. The Ishiraba, you were scattered around the place while he went around checking. You probably didn't know who he was anyhow until you didn't get formally introduced to him.
So after Minari, then you went back to Koitaki, was it?
Yep.
And did the battalion as a whole get reinforcements, maybe new clothes, new weapons, a bit of training?
What we did at Koitaki initially was to form in defensive position just in case the Japanese bypassed the track and got down further. And in the meantime, we got fresh shirts and clothing, fresh food, ammunition, and then eventually they sent us back down to Beatles Bay, somewhere around there.
So did you have a chance to have a bit of a rest and just...
We had a rest there, yeah.
And you got your energy back and just felt a little bit better?
Yeah.
And then how long before did you then leave for Gona? Was it only a matter of weeks at Koitaki?
It was March, I think, by the time we went up to, to 2 months probably.
So you had a fair while at Koitaki?
No, I had about nearly a month at Koitaki, I think it was, and probably a month back in Moresby itself. And then we got orders to go up to Gona.
How did you get to Gona? Did you fly up there?
We flew, thank goodness. Yeah. Flew up and landed at Soputa. And from Soputa we marched up to Gona.
How far was the march? Was it a long way?
It's a fair way from Soputa to Gona. I think it's about 20 kilometres, isn't it? 20, 30 kilometres, I think.
How did you feel about getting back into action again?
Oh, mixed feelings, I think. We didn't know what to expect at all, and you do what you're told to do at the stage, yes. It's something no one quite realised what Gona was, or Sanananda, that part of the world. Didn't realise how bad it was going to be.
You were still in 9th Platoon at that stage?
Yep.
Were you acting corporal, acting sergeant at that?
I think I was a corporal at that stage of the game, acting corporal at that stage.
And
Sector commander.
And you got new weapons? Had the Allen gun come in there?
We got the Allen gun and we got the Bren gun. New weapons as far as that were concerned, yeah. And,
plenty of ammunition?
Plenty of ammunition.
Yeah. And what did you find when you got to Gona? There were lots of battalions at Gona, so...
Well, there were a lot of battalions, but there weren't many men because there had been a lot of deaths up there. And we'd taken over from 3rd Battalion. Colonel Cameron had apparently told them we were right up close to the enemy, and when we took over we found we weren't. But we formed up with little defensive perimeters and waited to see for the big day, for the big attack. And there was a couple of companies went in and got beaten up rather badly. 2nd 14th were inland, coastal-wise from us more, and they got, what was left of them got beaten up very badly. And the great day arrived. Colonel Honour, luckily, has had time to reconnoitre the place, which the others weren't allowed to do because it was such a hurry to get rid of them. And he discovered this strip of timber running down into the heart of the Gona, and decided that we'd go down through there. We're lucky we got right down into it.
Was that just beside the creek? Not far from the creek?
Not far from the creek, yeah.
And who was your battalion, who was your platoon commander at that stage?
Kelly, Hugh Kelly.
So you're under Hugh Kelly?
Yeah.
Because Hugh Kelly and Hugh Delby both took in attacks. So
yep.
These are the famous attacks that we hear about.
That's right.
Hugh Delby went from foxhole to foxhole. And
I wouldn't know because it was just got all confused really at stage, but that was, if they say That was right.
So, under Hugh Kelly, you went into Gona and probably spent quite a few days fighting.
Well, it was all over. When we did the attack, it was all over in a day. And after that, while the rest of the battalion went across to Efogi River, for some reason or other, I was left behind with a group to collect all the ammunition, all the automatic weapons, and pick them up. And
Were these Japanese or Australian ones?
both. Yeah. And there were weapons all over the place, dead bodies all over the place, and a horrible place. Apart from a lot of water, it was monsoon time, a lot of water around.
It must have been, it must have been awful, the smell. And
Not a very nice place at all. Yeah, apparently it was a picturesque little village. It probably is now too. And,
yeah, it's nice now actually. Yeah, the villagers have it very, very nice.
yes,
So that you had to pick up all the automatic weapons and
collect them and identify as many of the dead bodies we could put a stake in, or put a tin helmet there, or stick a rifle, train it down as much as we could. And
after that, did you then
after
go up to Huggins Roadblock, or you just stayed down there?
we went to Huggins Roadblock, was the next phase of the thing.
And what was that like?
Very funny actually. It was just in this Huggins Roadblock, and we'd in holes, some they'd been dug, and the Japanese were up in front of us, and the Japanese were behind us. We had to sort of wind in around between them, and mainly part of our job there was to send escorts up with the native trains were going up to Sanananda to carrying supplies to the 18th Brigade and bringing back the wounded. And so there were 3 or 4 of us, one in front, one in the middle, and one behind, would take these boys up. And you could see everything, but no one worries at all. Very strange. Yeah.
And that was your last action with the 39th?
Yeah. That's the last.
And what happened after that? Did you then march back to one of the airfields? And
Yes, we went from there to, we were supposed to go to Soputa, and we marched back to Soputa. And they told us you should have gone to Dobajura. So we had to march from Soputa to Dobajura. And I don't think too many of us even recollect what it was like. We were full of malaria, tired, worn out,
and there weren't many left at that stage?
32, I think, that was that stage.
And you were one of the 32?
Yeah.
And then on a plane back to Port Moresby?
On the plane to Port Moresby, and we were, I think, somewhere about the 5 mile, somewhere along the line. They seemed to hide us.
Did you know at that stage that you'd been recommended for the military medal back at Kokoda?
First I knew was when we came back to Australia, into Queensland, and just prior to going on leave, Colonel Honor and his 2IC called us up and told us.
How did you feel about that? Surprised?
Surprised, didn't realise, yeah.
What was the reaction back at home?
They were thrilled to pieces.
Your parents would have been happy?
Yeah, my father had died, but well, away, but strange enough, I got a letter. He died on the 27th of November, and I got the letter the day we attacked Gona, telling me he died. So he unfortunately didn't know.
And then you got back to Australia, and were you with the battalion up in Queensland?
Yes, we went to Queensland with the battalion, and then went on leave from there. Then we came back to Queensland and the Tablelands, and then we were told it was all over.
What do you think about that?
Oh, it was such a shock. Couldn't understand it at that stage. Can now, but couldn't understand it then. So we were formed up and marched across to the 2nd Battalion.
Did you have a choice of where you went, or
They just told to go.
you joined the second with probably? Did a whole company go to the second?
Yes, we were fortunate in that Colonel Cameron, all his faults, each company went to the same company in the second as a small group. A company, we only were platoons worth, so we formed 9th platoon of the second. And the other companies did the same thing.
Were you accepted into the second?
No.
Still chocos, I suppose, weren't you?
No, the people that didn't accept us were all the reinforcements who joined, they were reinforced after they'd come out of their own Stanleys. And they hated us. The old timers accepted us. And it wasn't, we didn't realise it for quite a while that these people had seen nothing at all. They were a bit jealous of us, actually, I think. It took a while to sort of quieten things down. Strange.
And you saw out the war with the second?
Yep. Oh, they went home and a company of us went down to, when I say company, an enlarged platoon went down to Baroque to quell the Indonesian invasion down there. And how silly the army is. The rest of it, when that was decided that was no good, useless, the rest of the company went home in an aircraft. Another chap and myself, Ronnie Bauer, we wanted to report back to VX to the 4th Battalion. We went back there and that was a Choco Battalion, and French's Forest, they'd been looking after that, and they'd marched from Madang up to VX. We weren't accepted there at all.
Where were you when the war ended? Up at the VX campaign?
Yeah, VX. Or Cape Bomb, I think it is. We actually weren't at VX Point, we were at Cape Bomb.
To finish up, Alex, what do you think is important for future generations to remember about the New Guinea campaigns?
Make sure that the powers that be provide you with information and weapons and supplies. I think that's about it. Covers everything.
On behalf of the 39th Battalion Historical Subcommittee, we would like to thank you very much for your time and this very interesting interview. Thank you.